Fine. So then we at the accommodation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the.
Gym, tennis, football, basketball.
I think that can still keep up. If I. Fine. So then we at the accommodation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the. That's fine.
Gym, tennis, football, basketball.
World War II, black men died at Pearl Harbor. Black men died in Guadalcanal, in the Solomon Islands, in the Philippines, at Iwo Jima. Black men died in North Africa fighting the Germans. Black men died at Anzio Beach, at Palermo, at Naples, to free Rome, to free Paris, to free Europe. Damn it! We died to build America. And America has rebuilt Germany and Japan, and the nigger is still suffering and dying in the streets of America.
Our brother, Barack, beautiful human being with a sweet heart, and now he's an assassin. See, America can sit down tyrants, but who will sit her down? She puts her trust in her weapons of war. She threatens the nations of the earth and has my brother calling for the assassination of brother Muammar Gaddafi. What has he done? I can defend that man. You don't know that man. See, you're a victim of that media that's controlled by satanic forces. My poor brother, they're bombing. They said they were only going over there for humanitarian reasons. We're going to stop Gaddafi from killing his own people, and we believe that.
If they can destroy my credibility, as they did Martin Luther King first, take him down in the eyes of his people and then assassinate him, I don't believe that America is beyond that. I believe it's being discussed right now in the White House. I believe it's being discussed by certain members of Congress. How are you going to deal with Farrakhan? Yes, I presented you with a dilemma, but I'm warning America. I'm not Martin Luther King. I'm not Malcolm X. I'm in a little different time frame. And I think you would be wise to see if God is with me. And if God is with me, you would be well to leave me alone.
In his public utterances, he remains eloquent and bitter about white America's role in the injustices his black brothers and sisters have suffered down the years. He has been even more bitter about America's Jews. But even though many Americans, black and white, perceive him as a racist, this leader of the Nation of Islam, with his million-man march last October, made himself a force to be reckoned with. In person, this rather private man can come across as earnest and reasonable in professing his desire for a true reconciliation between the races and religions in America. But almost everything he says has been drowned out by the current controversy over his recent meetings in the Middle East with sworn enemies of the United States. Tomorrow, Minister Farrakhan embarks on a nationwide tour to explain his motives for that trip and to blunt the criticism that has led the Justice Department to investigate whether he must now register as a foreign agent.
For me to register as a foreign agent is to give America control over what I say. And that's what America wants, is control over what I say. In the foreign agent law, you can't influence public opinion. That's my business, to influence public opinion, especially when liars are deceiving the American people. So no, I will never register as a foreign agent because I'm not that.
Farrakhan says he does not worry about what the government thinks of his traveling to Tehran, where he spoke to millions of Iranians celebrating the 17th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution, an uprising that led to the taking of the U.S. hostages, or about his much-publicized visit to Baghdad to confer with Iraq's Saddam Hussein. On his return home to Chicago in February, he would explain himself only to his brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam.
My job was to get up quickly and get out of America and connect the Nation of Islam and Black America to Africa, to the Middle East, and to the Muslim world. That was why I had to go.
And one of the first places he went to was Libya, where he received a warm welcome from Muammar Gaddafi. The Libyan news agency, JANA, reported Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi saying the following: "Our confrontation with America used to be like confronting a fortress from outside. Today we have found a loophole to enter the fortress from within." You are a loophole for Muammar Gaddafi, who you say offered you $1 billion, who has in the past given you $5 million?
Well, he offered me more than $1 billion. He offered me the wealth of the nation of Libya behind the Nation of Islam.
You were a loophole for Muammar Gaddafi?
Well, I don't know what he means by loophole. Maybe you ought to invite him on 60 Minutes.
I have.
And ask him. But certainly, I can't be a functionary for Muammar Gaddafi. However, I would be most happy to detail my conversation with him if I'm subpoenaed before Congress.
That subpoena to talk to the Congress about his travels to America's enemies in the Middle East has not been issued. Nonetheless, I reminded him
He didn't go to Egypt, where Sadat and Begin made peace, a Muslim and a Jew. Didn't go to Jordan, where King Hussein and Shimon Peres have made an accord. Didn't go to Israel, where Arafat and Rabin finally shook hands, instead of just going to a lot of dictatorships. To go to a democratic country where Jews and Muslims are beginning to reconcile might have been a wonderful sign for you, Minister Farrakhan, to show to the world. If they're on the road to reconciliation, that's fine. But, you know, there's also the possibility of my being assassinated overseas. Egypt right now is a place where it's very, very volatile. And I thought that in that surrounding, it might not be the best place for me at this time. If I went to Israel, I don't think Israel would be the best place for me to be at this time, considering the view that most Jews have of Louis Farrakhan.
you go to Nigeria, which is, if not the most corrupt nation in Africa, and it is, it could be the most corrupt nation in the world, Minister Farrakhan.
Oh, now, Mr. Wallace.
It is the most corrupt nation that I have ever covered. I've been there 25 years ago, and I've been there as recently as last year.
Fine. So what? 35 years old. That's what that nation is. Now, here's America, 226 years old. You love democracy, but there in Africa, you're trying to force these people into a system of government that you just have accepted. 30 years ago, black folk got the right to vote. You're not in any moral position to tell anybody how corrupt they are. You should be quiet and let those of us who know our people go there and help them get out of that condition. But America should keep her mouth shut wherever there's a corrupt regime, as much hell as America has raised on the earth. No, I will not allow America or you, Mr. Wallace, to condemn them as the most corrupt nation on earth when you have spilled the blood of human beings. Has Nigeria dropped an atomic bomb and killed people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Have they killed off millions of Native Americans? How dare you put yourself in that position as a moral judge? I think you should keep quiet, because with that much blood on America's hands, you have no right to speak. I will speak because I don't have that blood on my hand. Yes, there's corruption there. Yes, there's mismanagement of resources. Yes, there is abuse. There's abuse in every nation on earth, including this one. So let's not play holy to moralize on them. Let's help them.
I'm not moralizing. I'm asking a question, and I got an answer.
Why would you put it as the most corrupt regime in the world? That doesn't make sense.
Can you think of one more corrupt?
Yeah, I'm living in one. I'm living in one. Yes, you've done a hell of a thing on this earth, so you should not be the one to talk. You should be quiet when it comes to moral condemnation, in my judgment. I didn't mean to be so fiery.
No, that's good. That's good.
That's my passion.
I first recognized the passion of the black Muslim movement and Louis Farrakhan way back in 1959 when I anchored a broadcast entitled The Hate That Hate Produced. The black Muslim meeting we filmed included a mock trial, a kind of passion play, where the white man was judged for crimes against the black race. The voice you will hear is that of the prosecutor. This tape will show you why white America was worried about the black Muslims.
I charge the white man, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, with being the greatest murderer on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest peace breaker on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest adulterer on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest troublemaker on earth. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask you, bring back a verdict of guilty as charged.
I'm sure you remember that. You wrote it.
Yes.
And you
But-
believed that then.
Oh, yes, I believe it now. History is not false. If he says that the white man did all these things, I did not write the white man's history. That history is written in murder, in the bloodshed of the darker peoples of the world, and even in the bloodshed of your own people.
Back at that time, Elijah Muhammad, the man whom you revere and still regard as the Messiah, in a certain sense, no?
Yes?
He wanted a separation. I couldn't even talk to him. Do you still believe in separation of the races?
I believe, Mike, that if we can't get along in peace, then we should separate. We have serious differences that are exacerbated now over time between black and white. The question that we have to answer, are those differences irreconcilable?
Are they?
I don't know. Have we tried as hard as we could to reconcile them? And if we have, and we cannot, then separation would be the best answer.
But you are suggesting that it's basically the white man's fault.
Oh, no, Mr. Wallace. I'm not going to say that. Because justice would not be served if I said it was all the fault of white people.
Reason that
we have to take some blame in this ourselves. As black people, we can't sit around waiting for white people to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves. And our failure to do this is our fault. White folk have done bad by us in the past. Yes, that is true. And they do some bad by us today. But if we did better by ourselves today, we could help to reconcile this difference.
Farrakhan's call for black men to do better for themselves was the theme of his Million Man March. Last fall, he called black men from all across America to come to Washington for a Day of Atonement. And they came. His message? Change your lives. But after the march, he says, he was depressed, somehow sad, hurt by the mainstream media who he felt failed to give him proper credit for his extraordinary accomplishment in organizing the march. He withdrew to the Nation of Islam's compound in Phoenix, Arizona. He disappeared from the public eye for almost 3 months. Then he reemerged for that tour of Africa and the Middle East. To observers like Dr. C. Eric Lincoln, a distinguished black historian and professor emeritus at Duke University, who has studied the Nation of Islam since the 1950s, Farrakhan's trip squandered a great opportunity. Professor Lincoln told me he was disgusted with your trip to the Middle East and to Africa. He said, he blew it, you. After the Million Man March, he feels that you had what you were after. You had put yourself in the position as a leader of the entire black community in America, which you had never had before, and then that you just threw it away with the trip to Africa.
You know.
Now, this is from a man,
Yes.
scholar, been a guest in your home,
Yes.
loves you and your wife.
And I love him. Let me say this. There are many people like Dr. Lincoln who think just like that. They were hurt because they watched my struggle. And they said, now he has arrived, okay?
Right.
And they felt not only that I had arrived for me, I had arrived for them because secretly they have wanted to embrace Louis Farrakhan. And just as they were about to put their arms around me, I went to Africa and the Middle East. And to quote them, I blew it.
You spoke, in their view, against your own country.
You know, some of your best patriots are those who never went along with the government position. Listen, everyone that stepped back from me, they didn't run away. They're behind a tree looking. Is he going to make it? How's he going to get out of this one? Oh my God, I'm not a politician. I don't do what people think I should do. I do what God inspires me to do. Which one of these leaders would have asked me to call for 1 million men to come to Washington? Not one. That was an inspiration from God that I followed, and they all applauded. Great thing you did. God inspired me to get up and leave this country, and before long, those same critics will say, I was wrong, Farrakhan.
I want to show you now, Minister Farrakhan, an excerpt from your speech, Savior's Day in Chicago, a couple of months ago.
I know you want to kill me, but I just raised the price. You want me dead, but you gonna pay a price to get that result.
Who wants to kill you? Why?
I believe that conversation is raging right now in government circles because I appear to be interfering with America's foreign policy objectives in Africa and in the Middle East. They want me kind of silenced or muzzled, and if they can destroy my credibility, as they did Martin Luther King first, take him down in the eyes of his people and then assassinate him. I don't believe that America is beyond that. I believe it's being discussed right now in the White House. I believe it's being discussed by certain members of Congress. How are you going to deal with Farrakhan? Yes, I presented you with a dilemma, but I'm warning America. I'm not Martin Luther King. I'm not Malcolm X. I'm in a little different time frame. And I think you would be wise to see if God is with me. And if God is with me, you would be well to leave me alone.
More from Louis Farrakhan on Mike Tyson and rape, on Malcolm X, and on his relationship with America's Jewish community when we return. As treat women, their wives, and others too. I asked him why he had recently gone to Las Vegas to watch a convicted rapist, Mike Tyson, fight for the heavyweight title. We talked with him before Mike Tyson's latest episode of alleged sexual harassment in Chicago. What message does it send to your sisters in Islam that you went, in effect, to glorify a convicted rapist?
Do you deny another human being the chance to change, to be made better? Before Mike Tyson went to prison, he visited me. We talked. And I told Mike, I said, brother, whether you are guilty of this charge or not, and he swore to me that he was not guilty. I said, but whether you're guilty of this charge or not, you have been abusive of women. I said, you know, with me, rape is a crime for which I believe the death penalty should be applied. Because what you've done to the woman, only God can bring her back from that. I said, and I wrote him a letter when he was in prison. I said, Mike, you will not leave prison until you learn the lesson that God intended for you to learn. So when I went to see Mike in his fight for the championship, I went to see whether this reformed human being, by the grace of God, would win his championship back. And I'm very proud of Mike. I'm very proud of the change that he has made in his life.
You were brought up as an Episcopalian?
Yes, sir.
By your mother?
Yes, sir.
And your father, what did you know of your father?
Very little. Very little. He was from the Caribbean, from the island of Jamaica, a very light-skinned black man who I believe had white parentage, black and white parentage. He was a philanderer, if you pardon the expression, and my mother broke up with him and reared us by herself.
Did you miss not having a father?
Yes, but my mother was so strong. She was both mother and father.
And that's true in the black community in America today. No.
Yes, yes, it is. My dad liked women, and I don't know too many men who don't. But my mother loved her children and did her best to make a future for us, and for that, I am eternally grateful.
It was his mother who encouraged him to play the violin, which he still plays today. In fact, the man born 63 years ago as Louis Eugene Walcott, who grew up in Roxbury, Massachusetts, originally wanted a career in show business as a singer. You call yourself the charmer.
I did. And since my parents were from the Caribbean and I loved calypso so well, I began singing calypso, and every calypsonian chooses some name. And I remember I was in Montreal, Canada, and the people were sitting with me one night. They said, "You are so charming." And so from that, I started calling myself the charmer. I wish that I could be charming today.
It was in 1955, after hearing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad speak, that he dedicated his voice to the black Muslim movement.
'Cause that's the only way we're gonna be free. Well,
Now he was Louis X. His mentor was Malcolm X, who was eventually gunned down at Harlem's Audubon Ballroom in 1965. Farrakhan has steadfastly denied any involvement in that murder. When Malcolm X's daughter, P.O.W.E.R, was arrested last year for hiring a hitman to kill Farrakhan in retaliation for her father's murder, he would not press charges against her, believing the FBI had set her up. And that finally brought about a public reconciliation with Betty Shabazz, Malcolm's widow.
I can't say that all the differences are reconciled. I can't say that the pain and the hurt of 30 years and the loss of her husband is all of a sudden forgotten. But I can say, Mr. Wallace, that atonement and reconciliation is absolutely necessary. And we took that theme from Jewish tradition.
You don't trust the media, you've said so. You don't trust whites, you've said so. You don't trust Jews, you've said so. Well, here I am, white, Jewish, and a reporter. So why in the world did you trust me enough to sit down and talk to me this way,
Well,
Minister Farrakhan?
Let me say this. I would not say that all whites and all Jews and all media are untrustworthy. That is not a fair characterization of my
That's
thinking.
the perception of a lot
Fine.
of people in America.
Perception is not necessarily reality.
Take a look at this clip.
You are wicked deceivers of the American people. You have sucked their blood. You are not real Jews, those of you that are not real Jews. You are the synagogue of Satan. And you have wrapped your tentacles around the U.S. government. And you're deceiving and sending this nation to hell. But I warn you in the name of Allah, you would be wise to leave me alone. But if you choose to crucify me, know that Allah will crucify you.
That's a message of reconciliation. It's bound to be perceived as anti-Semitic, and you know it, and you do it over and over again.
I quoted, the synagogue of Satan is part of a scripture in the book of Revelations, the 2nd chapter and the 3rd chapter. It says, and I quote, those who say they are Jews and are not, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan.
The people you're talking to there, the people who saw that on television, they aren't students of the Bible as you are. They don't know the scripture as you do. What they hear, what I heard, was overtones of absolute, you were sticking it to the Jews once again.
In reality, Mr. Wallace, you know, I've heard whites and Jews say they're good and bad in every race.
Yeah.
And if they're good and bad in every race, does that not apply to Jews? Are there good Jews and are there bad Jews? And if there are good Jews, what constitutes a good Jew?
Give me a list of a half a dozen good Jews.
No. Only God knows who the good are. There are good appearing Muslims, there are good appearing Christians, there are good appearing Jews, but God knows who is good. And so the good are those who live by the standard that makes you a Jew. Once you deviate from that standard, you're not a Jew anymore, from my vantage point.
Have you talked about bad Muslims?
Of course.
Who?
There are bad Muslims. There are Muslims who deviate from the path of God. I'm not anti-Semitic. I do not hate Jews. I want this to be very clear. I do not hate Jews. I do not hate people because their skin is white. What I hate is evil and injustice and exploitation, whether a black does it, whether a white does it, whether a Jew, a Muslim, or a Christian does it.
And Farrakhan, despite all his past rhetoric, now says he wants to make a genuine effort at reconciliation with the Jewish community in America.
I am willing to visit the board of rabbis in any city in America, sit down and talk with those scholars of Judaism. I am willing to visit a synagogue and speak to the Jewish people because I do not want Jewish children to believe that they have somebody who, if he comes into great power, will put them in ovens. I don't want that for my children. I don't want that for your children. And if we don't want that for our children, then the question is, what are we willing to do today to stave off any ugly future?
Have you made that kind of a suggestion before, Minister Farrakhan?
Yes, I have.
And what has been the response?
Well, there are always preconditions. Well, Farrakhan, if you tone down your rhetoric...
Well, you sure haven't toned down your rhetoric.
You know, I can't tone down what I believe to be truth. And if it's truth and if I'm in error, how am I going to know that? Unless there's a dialogue. And you say, no, Farrakhan, here's the truth. And if you can show me that I love truth, and I hope that I'm humble enough to be open enough to see the truth if you show it to me.
My Jewish friends will say, Wallace, come on, we've heard all this before. He's not to be trusted. You know that.
Well, that's on both sides.
I know it.
That's on both sides. I could say, well, we've heard that before, too, of reconciliation. Look at the Indians, I mean, look at all the treaties that were signed, and look at where they are. So let's not talk about trust, because I really don't think that you've earned trust. But we can earn it together, but time is running out on all of us. And I think if we're going to make that move, why not let's make it now?
As we said, Louis Farrakhan, with the success of the Million Man March, made himself a man to watch in America. How many legions does he have? It's hard to say, but there is no doubt that beyond his card-carrying followers in the Nation of Islam, There are millions of Americans, both black and white, who now take him seriously. The question is, which voice is the real voice of Louis Farrakhan? The private one that says he is serious about a genuine move toward reconciliation, or the harsher rhetoric of his public voice? As he starts his nationwide tour tomorrow, it will be interesting to see which voice he'll choose.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. I want to greet you, my beloved brothers and sisters, in the greeting words of peace. We say it in the ancient tongue of Arabic. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Welcome, 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 dear beloved Imagination family, to another episode of the Imagination Show. My name is Brother Leo Muhammad, and sitting alongside me is my beloved sister, my beloved friend and wife, Sister Claudia Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you all in the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, beloved.
Thank you all once again for joining us for another week of Image and Nation show. And I pray to Allah that you are all safe and well. And I pray for anyone who've lost a loved one or anyone who's ill. I pray that Allah will heal them. We're at a very, it's a sad, but beautiful at the same time because of our potential, what we have. But a lot of people are ill. So we pray for anyone that is sick right now, that Allah will heal them.
Yeah.
What is that noise?
We heard we heard some bad news, didn't we? 1 second. Yeah. I don't know why it's we did hear some bad news, didn't we?
Yes.
You know, somebody's relative passed away.
Committed suicide.
Committed suicide, which is just not good.
No.
Just not good, dear family. That's just the reality of a world like this, where some people get to that point where they feel utter despair. Yes. They feel like life is not worth living, and they check out of here.
That's right.
And it's really, really, devastating for those family members who are left behind. And so, as Sister Claudia said, our hearts go out to any of you who are going through difficulties and difficult times, but really just to encourage you that tomorrow is a better day.
That's right.
And for you to really hang in there, man, and sister and brother, and you'll get through this. Nothing is so permanent as never to change. Change will come, and you just have to rekindle your faith. Believe that things are going to get better, and they will get better.
That's right.
Dear family, at this time, as always, I want to encourage all of you to hit that thumbs up button. I can see, there's over 70 of us here at the moment, and I can only see 24 likes. So hit that like button, dear family, hit that thumbs up, and also hit the share. And also don't forget to, if you haven't subscribed, if you're new to the Imagination Show, make sure that before the end of today, you have subscribed to the Imagination Show. That way, you'll get notifications when we go live, when we are doing anything. You will be one of those who will be the first to know. Dear family, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm really feeling quite, I don't know what the word is. I wouldn't say excited, but I'm feeling a little bit looking forward to having a conversation that is based on our title this week, which says, "With friends like these, who needs enemies? I want to have a conversation around that theme because, you know, even just listening just now to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in that interview with Mike Wallace, and just really looking and listening to the way in which Mike Wallace, who comes across as this really nice white gentleman reporter, but I'm telling you, man, that man's a demon. And as he pointed out in that interview, going back to, the 60s and that program that he was the anchor of called The Hate That Hate Produced, showing you his history of trying to really put the Nation of Islam in a particular light. The hate that hate produced is how he was trying to introduce the Nation of Islam to the world at that time. And then with this particular interview, they were highlighting specific aspects of the life of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, not with a view to, showing the minister in a good light, but with a view to trying to really paint him in a particular light in order to foment more and more dislike or more and more hatred. But, when you see the way the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan conducted himself and handled that Wallace, you see that the minister is a divinely guided man. This is a man who God speaks through. You see, the minister really was just masterful in the way in which he dealt with all of these various things that came up. They were highlighting the fact that the minister spoke to the entire Iranian nation. Do you understand that Iran is in the news today in 2025? And that what that's showing you is how much the minister has his finger on the pulse of what's happening in the world today, what was happening then, what's happening now, and that then and now is connected. It's not disconnected. Iran is going to feature big time going forward in what's going to happen, what's going to unfold on this planet. It's not an accident that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the only, what you might call so-called foreigner that's ever been allowed to speak to the entire Iranian nation. That's how much trust the Iranian authorities had in that man, and they recognized something in him that they would allow him to speak to 6 million that were in front of him and the rest of the nation on television. Dear family, Mike Wallace was asking the minister questions almost as if he expected the minister to be desperate to want to be his friend or to want to be the friend of white people. That's why we're dealing with this theme today. With friends like these, who needs enemies? Because they really talk as if we should be their friends. They talk as if we should accept them as friendly people, when the reality is that, according to our history, they've never been our friends. This is not us rejecting friendship from them. This is based on the reality of what these people have done and continue to do in the way of evil towards the native and indigenous and original Black people of this earth, dear family. He went into this whole spiel about Nigeria being the most corrupt nation on the earth. And you saw the way the minister had to spank him, and remind him of their own corruption and the fact that Nigeria has not been responsible for dropping atom bombs on anybody. That's corruption to the maximum level. That America is more corrupt than Nigeria or any of these nations that they like to point the finger at. And then with the corruption in so many of these African nations, which you see is in the news currently, based on the fact that our brother Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, based on his due diligence, based on his dedication to his people and his nation and the African continent as a whole, is now showing up all of these other leaders for their corruption. But who is the facilitator of their corruption? Where is it that they bank their money? It's not in Africa. You can find their accounts in Zurich. You can find their accounts in Switzerland. You can find their accounts in the city of London. You can find their accounts in all of these European banking institutions. So let's not talk about corruption, dear family. You know, Mike Wallace was trying to get the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to condemn black people. You see, but the minister refused to condemn Nigeria. He was trying to get him to condemn this brother, I think it was Henry Louis Gates, I think that's the one, who said that the minister blew it after the Million Man March because, you know, he got up and went to Africa and went on this Middle Eastern tour. And this brother said he blew it. The minister turned around and blunted Mike Wallace's objectives by saying, I love, the minister said, I love that brother. You see, because he really hoped in his little naive child's play that the minister would, you know, when he said that this brother said you blew it, that the minister then would bite on that and condemn the brother. No, the minister said, I love that brother. But the brother is evidently mistaken because he doesn't understand what motivates the minister. The minister is not motivated like some politician trying to please people. The minister is a man who is inspired of God, and he's obeying God, not obeying some popularity contest. He tried to get the minister to condemn Mike Tyson. You see, a convicted rapist, you know. No, dear family, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan relayed to him what he said to brother Mike Tyson, and that Tyson, like anybody else, should be given the opportunity to reform himself. And at the end of the day, you know, he also tried to get the minister, or at least he pointed out the fact that the FBI came to the minister to say that one of Malcolm X's daughters, Quabila Shabazz, was caught in a plot to assassinate the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But what did the minister do? Did the minister again bite on that? Oh, thank you, FBI. Oh, that terrible girl. No, the minister condemned the FBI and said that they had set the sister up. You see, that's how wise God has made this man, where they were trying to get the minister to go against one of the daughters of Brother Malcolm. Dear family, the West, when it comes to corruption, the West makes the rest of the world look like angels. Understand me well. You know, dear family, Mike Wallace played the what he called a passion play that was written by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at one of the Savior's Day events, when the black man was saying, I charge the white man with being the greatest criminal on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest rapist on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest liar on earth. And then, you know, Mike Wallace trying to, you know, hoping against hope that was then and something had changed. Now the minister said, no, nothing ain't changed. I still believe that, you know, like the way he was representing it, like, oh, well, you know, obviously you've moved on from that. No, family. In fact, the white man's gotten worse since then. You see, he's done worse than the evidence that we had on him back in the 60s compared to what he has done up to this point. Come on, brothers and sisters. We've got to wake up, man. Don't let this white man try and pull the wool over our eyes and put that small time stuff over on us. And then Mike Wallace, he threw in a line in there at a certain point talking about why the minister, after the Million Man March, went abroad, why he went on the World Friendship Tour, why he went to Africa and the Middle East. And he threw in this line about the minister was hurt. The minister was hurt because the media wasn't giving him credit for the Million Man March. That's a damnable lie. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has never said anything like that. In fact, what he said at the Million Man March is, to God be the glory. The minister weren't taking no glory for the Million Man March. He said, to God be the glory. But you see how, again, you got to understand that, okay, he films an interview with the minister, then they chop it up.
That's right.
And they show little bits and pieces of the interview. You didn't see a quarter of that interview. Understand this. But then Mike Wallace's voice is consistently coming in and explaining what the minister meant or what he said or what he did. But when you hear from the minister, you hear a completely different type of narrative. And so the minister never said he was hurt because the media wasn't giving him credit. This is a damnable lie. But they insert that in the very interview that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave to him, but that's inserted later when they play it on their medium. Dear family, the minister quoted Revelations, you see, and I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, because they claim to be Jews, but they're not Jews. They are not Jews. Understand this. Family, we live in such a fake world, such a world where so much of what we think is truth is actually false. So much of what we've been taught and fed as history is a damnable lie. And so we have to learn to start really breaking this thing down. You see, he turned around at one stage towards the end saying to the minister, give me a list of 12 good Jews. Minister, get away with that nonsense. Like now the minister is going to be there trying to find and name good Jews. No, dear family, you name the good Jews. You show the good ones. You show the ones who are not running Hollywood and showing and producing all of this filthy stuff that passes as entertainment. You show them. You demonstrate who they are. That's not for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to go on some needle in a haystack hunt for a good one. That's the same as when God had to say to his prophet, go down into Sodom and Gomorrah and find me 50 good ones. And then go back and find 40, go back and find 30, go back and find 20, go back and find 10, go back and find one, and I will spare the city. And in the end, the prophet had to come back and say, I couldn't find one, dear family. Then again, Mike Wallace coming to the minister about trust. Oh, we've heard all that before. The minister turned it back on and said, well, we've heard it all before from you. What about all the treaties that's been signed with you over the years with the Native Americans and with black people? And which one have you ever honored? What about the treaty? What about the ceasefire deal that was signed the other day with the Palestinians? Who broke that? I mean, and this is just your pattern. This is just their behavior. This is how these people operate, dear family. And then right at the end, he's talking about which one of Farrakhan's voices will we hear going forward? Is it the private voice or the public, like the minister puts on one thing behind closed? No, dear family.
Always
the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, what you see is what you get. I am the same person behind the door as I am in front of the door. And so, dear family, I just wanted to just break it down a little bit, because I don't want any of us to be fooled when we listen to these, white people, as much as they try and dress themselves up and make themselves out to be, innocent reporters. All of them have got the same devilish mentality and desire to hoodwink the masses of the people when it comes to the way in which they depict the man of God. Dear family, welcome to episode 184 of the Imagination Show. Today is Thursday, the 29th of May, 2025. And as I said before, the title of our show today is With Friends Like These, Who needs enemies? See, because there's a lot of us who are really desperate to make friends with Caucasians. We really pray and we wish and we hope and we can't wait for that day when we can really, put all of the troubles behind us and we all can just be one happy family singing Kumbaya. Let me tell you something, man. Hell will freeze over before that day comes. I'm telling you straight up, I'm warning us, those of us who are desperate for that kind of friendship. It's just not going to happen. That's just not what Almighty God Allah designed. Okay, it's like I know there's a scripture that talks about children laying down next to snakes and lions and hyenas and all this kind of stuff. There's metaphorical meanings to those things, but don't for 1 minute think that the natural enemy of the lion, the hyena, one day that those two are going to be able to coexist in the same space at the same time, and it won't be war. It's just not possible. You see, there's enmity naturally between them. And whether you really appreciate this or not, the Caucasian, the one who originated and comes out of the hills and cave sides of Europe, he is not like the rest of the members of the human family. He has a different nature, a different characteristic, a different mentality, a different motivation. He cannot live in peace with the original man and the original woman, with the native people of our earth. He cannot do it. As much as there's some of them, a few of them who might even want to try that, the reality is that the vast majority of them, they will lean, they will move, they will gravitate towards the propensity of their nature. And their nature is to kill the original man. Their nature is to kill nature. They are anti-nature. They are anti-Christ. That's the nature of this particular people. You can take it or leave it, family, because I know some of us, we're just madly in love with our enemy. However, the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 168 says, O men, eat of the lawful and good things from that which is in the earth. We could just stop there briefly and say, there's a lot of lawful food for us. But remember, when we talk about food and that which emanates or comes out of the earth, we're not just talking about physical pomegranates and dates and cucumbers and lettuce and so on and so forth. We're also talking about that food which is the spiritual food, that food which is the words that we feed on, that which really stimulates us to be either godlike or to be like a beast. And so this is how we have to read this particular scripture. O men, eat of the lawful and good things, God things, good things, God things, from that which is in the earth, and follow not the footsteps of the devil. The devil has got footsteps. He walks in particular ways and he does particular things and he leaves a trail. He has feet because he's a man, see? Or a kind of man. That's why he's referred to as mankind, a kind of man, not the original man, not the man of God, but he is a kind of man. Follow not the footsteps of the devil. Surely, without doubt, without question, surely he is an open enemy to you. See, understand this. Again, we, really want to believe that this enemy is some unseen entity hiding somewhere and nobody has ever really met him. No, the scripture don't say that. The scripture says, surely he is an open enemy. In other words, he's in your face. And you see him every day on your television justifying shooting black people down in the street when they had an afro comb in their hand or a mobile phone in their pocket, and that was somehow mistaken to be a gun. And then at the same time, you'll have some white man committing mass murder, but somehow they managed to take him alive without him being shot. See? And we can go on and on and on, giving different examples of this wicked, open enemy. Look, family, you know, there's many, many more than these four, but I just thought I would highlight these four. This one called Merz, who is the leader now, the chancellor in Germany. And then you got Macron in France. I mean, a wicked demon. When you understand how France has had at least 14 West African countries in its grip since the 60s, since so-called independence, and these African countries have been kept completely and utterly impoverished for all of these years, underdeveloped for all of these years, not by accident, but by design. And then how they've gone to these nations and pretended to be going there to be helping them to fight terrorism, when in reality, they're the ones who are fueling the terrorists, supplying the terrorists with weapons, supplying the terrorists with logistics, supplying the terrorists in order to keep these nations utterly destabilized. See? Then you got Starmer in this country, in the so-called United Kingdom. A wicked, wicked demon, supposed to be a constitutional human rights lawyer. That's his profession, that's his training. And then he's elevated now to the prime minister. He used to be the chancellor of the exchequer. This man who is supposed to be steeped in the law, and yet he cannot recognize the genocide taking place in Palestine, in Gaza, and continues to this day to supply the Israelis with weapons of mass destruction to continue slaughtering men, women, and children, babies, man. And then, of course, we can't leave out big boy bully Donald J. Trump, who, you know, purports to be the most powerful man in the world. This is how they bill the president of the United States. Look, dear family, I ask a question here. You know, let me just reveal this. What foolish black leader could ever take any of these devils to be a sincere friend? I mean, we would have to be so dense, so dumb, with all of the history, with all that's happened, to believe that any of these people could actually be a sincere friend to an African nation, to an African Caribbean nation, to black people as a whole, when you consider the reality of what black people go through in and on this planet, in Europe, in America. And when you see the types of policies that are being enacted that impact us more than anybody else as a people. Dear family, with friends like these, who needs enemies? That's the question we're asking after seeing the ambush by Donald Trump of Cyril Ramaphosa in the White House when the president of South Africa went on a charm offensive to convince Trump that his African government continues to be a great friend of the United States and the white Western world, and that we are desperately in need of an even closer relationship and a lot more investment and technological help from our historical oppressors. I mean, just think about this, man. I'm looking at Ramaphosa in that room, in that Oval Office, and I'm thinking, what's wrong with us? How sick are we? You see? And this is again, I remember one time they were asking the minister, you know, is he interested in running for office? The minister just laughed. You must be crazy. See, family, once you get wrapped up, caught up in their systems. See, the problem in Africa, one of the major problems in Africa is the Caucasian, again, starting in 1884, 1885, he sat down in Berlin at this infamous Berlin conference and carved up Africa between all of the European nations. And in that process, he put in place systems of governance all throughout the continent of Africa, designed to benefit European nations, whether it was Spain, whether it was England, whether it was Germany, whether it was France, it didn't matter. The idea was to rape the continent of its resources. And even before that, starting in 1555 with John Hawkins taking captured and enslaved Africans out of the continent, because that was a resource. That was the greatest resource that was ever removed from the African continent. It's people in chains and in the holds of ships across the Atlantic Ocean to then be worked and used for over 400 years as cheap labor, because, I mean, cheap is not the right word, because we didn't get paid at all. It wasn't like we were given something. We were not paid. We would just work from can't see morning to can't see night until we died, and then we would be replaced in the field by another enslaved African. And we were completely disenfranchised. We didn't have any rights, any voting rights. We didn't have any human rights. We didn't have any civil rights. We didn't have the ability to be able to govern our own lives. We were destroyed as a human reality under that systematic destruction. Now, the point is that that's a system that was put in place. It wasn't some haphazard thing. This was mathematically worked out. This was scientifically enacted in order to get maximum benefit and maximum profit to the enemy, while we would suffer maximum deprivation, maximum injury, maximum pain, maximum death. This is what you've got to understand about this. We keep on trying to smudge or dampen down the reality of what we've been through like it was some type of accident or some type of haphazard, you know, a few bad apples. No, this was the economy of the West. This was the economy of Europe. This was how they built and went into industrial revolutions and literally grew these huge major cities and capitals that waxed rich and became shining beacons of modernity, while Africa remained absolutely in darkness and poverty. Now, the problem, getting back to what I was saying, the problem is that when so-called independence came, a lot of these so-called African leaders, they didn't go to completely dismantle what had been put in place. This is on the continent and also in the Caribbean and wherever else, in South America, everywhere where these people colonized the entire planet. Because that's what they do. They're like a virus, like a disease that wherever they went, they destroyed, they killed, they murdered, they genocided the native people, they took over, they stole the land, displaced the originals, and then they put these systems in place. Now we come and start, winning our independence, but we didn't win independence. We were not actually given independence. It was a smokescreen. It was yet another trick. And all that happened is that the white oppressor vacated a seat, and a black man or woman who was selected was then placed in that same seat to run that system that formerly was run by the enemy outright. This is the problem, dear family. And so you see, until this system is actually dismantled, until this system is disposed of. Why do you think the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said separation is the only solution? Why do you think we have to completely separate? When a man and a woman, have difficulties in their relationship and they separate, they don't continue to share the same apartment or house, or they have to live in completely different spaces, man, and begin to run their lives now based on their own personal and self-interest, not continue in some type of makeshift nonsense. And this is what we've done. This is why we continue to be in this terrible condition, because Cyril Ramaphosa is coming from South Africa, that same South Africa where Mandela, having spent 27 years locked up at the hands of these demons, when he came out, he didn't say, look, man, okay, I'm now in charge. You lot have to vacate all of this that you've been basically illicitly and illegally controlling and running, that's been running my people into an early grave, that's been a mismanagement and been an absolutely unjust system. It has to be dismantled. Mandela didn't do that. Mandela thought that he could modify that same system, sit in that seat and run. No, that's why to this day, white South Africans who, you will see, it will come up later on, white South Africans who constitute no more than 7% of the population. So that's 93% is Black indigenous Africans. They number approximately 7%, yet they still control something like 80% of the economy, of the arable land, of the farmland in that country in South Africa. That's madness. I just want you to imagine if that was a reverse situation. I want you to imagine white people living under a system whereby Black people are 7% of the population, and we own and control and run 80% of their economy and their arable land, and white people are marginalized into some ghettoized existence. How long do you think that would go on for? You must be crazy. But this is what Ramaphosa and so many of these other so-called African leaders have accepted as normal. This is sick. And so, dear family, you know, when I saw what happened in this White House the other day, I wasn't surprised at all, to be honest with you. You see, because that's inevitably what's going to happen under the circumstances. You see, I don't know why we think that somehow he's going to be able to go there and do anything else or manifest any type of real change. He's going there talking about trade and investment and friendship and partnership or whatever. And I mean, Trump, Trump loves a deal. But I can see Trump is just thinking to himself, who's this? In fact, he began a part of the conversation by saying he doesn't even know how Ramaphosa got his number. Imagine the insult.
Yes, yes.
I don't even know how he got my number.
Terrible.
I mean, it's just sick, man. It's like we just be mocked, and it's like we can't see it. It's like we really cannot see. We've been made deaf, dumb, and blind. Dear family, I hope you are all good. Are you good, Sister Claudia?
Yes,
Praise be to Allah.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm really just getting into this. I don't intend to be a long time, dear family. I didn't ask you to call a friend or family member. Let them know that Image and Nation is live and direct right now on Zoom and also on YouTube. In a section of the Holy Quran, chapter 60, verse 1, it would have been nice, actually, Sister Claudia, because I might ask you to just read a bit more of this scripture. In a section of the Holy Quran, chapter 60, verse 1, entitled Friendly Relations with Enemies. This is this is the title of that section. Friendly Relations with Enemies. It says in part, "O you who believe," talking to the believers, talking whether we call ourselves Muslims, Christians, Rasta, we all love to claim that we believe in God. Okay, by whatever name we call him, we believe, we're believers, we're righteous people. Everybody wants to see themselves as being good. So, oh, you who believe, do not take my enemy, this is God talking, do not take my enemy and your enemy for friends. Would you offer them love while they deny the truth that has come to you? Driving out the messenger and yourselves because you believe in Allah, your Lord? See, again, a lot of us don't understand why we're persecuted. But we're persecuted because the enemy knows that we are the people of God. He knows that we're the children of God. And he keeps us in a deprivated condition because quite often when people are reduced to a level of just mere survival, clinging to life, not being able to really live and function according to the nature in which that human being is created, it's very difficult under such circumstances for the human being to really manifest all of their God gifts, all of their real beauty. See, if you're literally struggling every day just to survive, just to make ends meet, if you're having to choose one thing over another because of the level of deprivation when it comes to finances and so on and so forth, you can't manifest your true nature and your true character under such circumstances. So that's why the enemy keeps us or attempts to keep us in a terrible condition. And that's why the scripture says that God provides a table in the midst of an enemy. See, that's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Despite them trying to cut him off, deprive him of being able to live and thrive and be able to do the work that God has put on his heart and mind to do, God makes sure that the minister has a table, that the minister has a cup that's overflowing. God provides for him. Because if the enemy had his way, you heard Mike Wallace, Gaddafi said that he would give you $1 billion The minister said, Gaddafi promised me more than $1 billion. He promised me the wealth of the Libyan nation behind the Nation of Islam. But then the American government moved to block any money coming to the Nation of Islam, coming to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from the Libyan nation, because that's what Gaddafi wanted to do. See? So the minister is not supposed to be able to eat. He's not supposed to be able to feed his family. He's not supposed to be able to run a nation. See? But the believers are the wind beneath the minister's wings. He has followers like us who give in charity to keep the minister flying above this wicked demon, and that's inspired by God. But family, this is what they do. They imprisoned the Honorable Minister, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. See, they drove out the messenger. See, this is what the scripture is talking about. Oh, you who believe, do not take my enemy and your enemy for friends. That's an instruction. Don't do it. Would you offer them love? When I looked at Ramaphosa, man, he was like a beggar, begging Trump for friendship, for love. You know, we're such good friends of yours. We've got this long relationship. Stop lying, Ramaphosa. America supported the apartheid state that kept Black people in South Africa absolutely down and almost out. See? But now you're going to the White House trying to convince Trump that you're this wonderful friend and trying to get him to reciprocate in that friendship. He ain't never going to do that. Oh, you who believe, do not take my enemy and your enemy for friends. Would you offer them love while they deny the truth that has come to you? See, they deny the teachings. They're never going to admit that this word that we share on a weekly basis, that you've heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been teaching now for 70 years, that this is the truth from Almighty God Allah, and that this truth, if we were to embrace it, it would set us free from the bondage and the traps that these enemies have placed us in. This fake and false friendship that some of us have attempted to embrace, and all it does, it just embarrasses us and makes us look like chumps and fools. That's how Ramaphosa looked. As much as he was trying to be a diplomat and, you know, speak soft and calm and cool and collected or whatever, I mean, man, that was a disgusting ambush that he walked into in that place. My enemy and your enemy for friends. Would you offer them love while they deny the truth that has come to you, driving out the messenger and yourselves because you believe in Allah, your Lord, just because you believe in God, just because you know his real name, Master Farad Muhammad? That terrifies the enemy, man, that we know God and that God is not a spook, just like the devil, Satan is not a spook. Dear family, just have a look. Did you want to read any more of that scripture, Sister Claudia? Because it's quite interesting, isn't it? Some of the rest of it. Just read some more of it. It stops, it says, because you believe in Allah, your Lord. Read some more of it.
If you have come forth to strive in my way and to seek my pleasure, would you love them in secret?
Stop there. Oh, would you love them in secret? That's how some of us are. We secretly love Shaitan and his minions. Go ahead, Sister Claudia.
And I know what you conceal and what you manifest.
Oh, stop again. God talking. I know what you conceal in your heart and what you manifest. See, we manifest, we say one thing, but deep down inside, we're suffering from self-hatred and love of the enemy. And we really think, and if you listen to Ramaphosa in that office, the way he was talking to Trump, we need your help. We need your technology. We need your investment. We need Africa don't need none of that.
No.
South Africa don't need none of that. We got everything we need. America needs South Africa. South Africa don't need America.
That's right.
But here you got a man going there begging. Go ahead, Sister Claudia.
And whoever of you does this, he indeed strays from the straight path.
Wow. Whoever of you goes begging to this enemy, concealing your love and your admiration for him, you've strayed away from the path of God. God can't even protect you no more. See? Because you're not under the auspices of his laws and statutes, because you've now gone to the pathway of Satan. You're walking after Satan's footsteps and you're begging Satan to be your friend. That's a terrible, terrible error, dear family. Let's listen to Trump.
Just very quickly,
Go ahead.
Darlene X says, the greatest minds come from Africa.
Come on, man. That's right, Darlene. Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, man, when you understand the beauty of Black people and Africans and what we got inside and what we can do, if we just came to ourselves, if we just embraced what God has given us and stop looking outward, if we just did what the Chinese did when they had their Cultural Revolution and they just turned inward and they just focused on developing China, man, I'm telling you, family, overnight, you would see the West just crumbling away, because everything comes from us. All of the, even man, do you understand who the doctors and the surgeons and all these people all over the West in America are? So many of them coming out of Nigeria, coming out of other parts of Africa. Do you understand why Ibrahim Traore is now saying that he wants to make sure that the students in Burkina Faso are taken care of, whereby they get money to stay in school, to stay in college, whereby they will go and get free education, because he don't want this brain drain to continue, where the brains in Africa drain out into Europe, drain out into America. Remember what I was showing you yesterday, Sister Claudia, about those visa applications?
Disgusting.
I mean, Africans making visa applications and getting rejected, and the enemy keeps the money, and it's to the tune of millions and millions of dollars that Africa loses every year, that the Caribbean loses every year, that the global South loses every year, with Africans and Black people trying to get visas to go to America, or visas to come into Europe, visas to come into Britain, and they're getting rejected.
All that money.
And then all the money is being kept. Whereas if we kept that money in those African nations, in those Caribbean nations, man.
We just need to separate.
Yeah, we need to separate big time, family.
A lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa, and that's really the purpose of the meeting, and we'll see how that turns out. But we have many people that feel they're being persecuted, and they're coming to the United States. So we take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on. And we had a lot of people. I must tell you, Mr. President, we have had a tremendous number of people, especially.
I mean, just listen to the level of hypocrisy. The man can allow genocide to come out of his mouth, talking about white South Africans being under a genocide, but you can't call what's going on in Palestine a genocide, where going on to maybe over 60,000 have already been slaughtered, over 100,000+ have been injured, There are more amputee babies in Palestine than anywhere else on the planet. Probably second only to what's been going on in this Sudan. Because that's an unspoken. One of these days, I'm going to do a whole show just on Sudan and that part of Africa, and also the Congo. Because man, millions have been slaughtered. See, but you don't hear any of them calling that a genocide. See, because this is the double standard. This is the hypocrisy. This is the racism. This is the hatred of Black people and indigenous people and people who are non-white. And it's just manifested, you see? Talking about white people in South Africa suffering a genocide, so now he's taking them in to America. I mean, please, listen again, family.
We had a lot of people. I must tell you, Mr. President, we have had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers, and they're fleeing South Africa, and it's a very sad thing to see. But I hope we can have an explanation of that, because I know you don't want that.
He wants an explanation. He wants Ramaphosa to explain. See, this is like a headmaster now, who's demanding an explanation from his pupil, or a boss or a master wanting the slave, the servant, to come and explain, why are these white people upset? Why are white people, wanting to leave South Africa? Why have you upset them? You better have an explanation, Ramaphosa. There's a threat there, family.
It's a kind of a different meeting. Normally we have meetings, we talk about trade, and we'll be talking about trade and other things. But that certainly will be a subject that comes up.
What will it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for the President. It's for him. No, seriously.
I'd rather have him answer.
Yeah, I'd rather answer that. It will be.
Our President will respond to you.
Yeah, let me.
Thank you.
And you see, you know why it's a nonsense? Just the fact that they all start laughing. See, if there was a genuine genocide, you think everybody would be bursting out in laughter and it would be some humorous thing? See, because they're just playing games with this silly black man sitting there, now getting drawn into some conversation about white genocide when it doesn't exist, and that's why they can have a good laugh. But he's been put now in a position where he's got to explain something that doesn't even exist.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here.
See, some of whom are Donald Trump's good friends, because Ramaphosa, to come on this little visit to Washington, he had to bring all these white South Africans with him, golf players, because, Trump is big time into golf. So he's got some golf players in the room with him. He's also got a white member of his cabinet in the meeting with him. And he's now hoping that these white people who have come with him are going to persuade Donald that, please, Mr. President, this is not true. This is not really happening. And I've brought these white people with me. And of course, they wouldn't be with me if I wasn't a good boy, if I wasn't doing all the things that you would expect me to be doing, Mr. Trump. I mean, it's really pathetic, dear family.
When we have talks between us around a quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
Occupy land, that's who we are.
Trump said, turn the lights down, turn the lights down, play the video. And now Trump is showing our brother Julius Malema in the South African parliament talking about land expropriation without compensation, basically saying, as black people, we have to take the land back, the land that's been stolen, the land that so many black South Africans have died for over the years and have never, ever received. Remember the statistics I gave you? The Caucasians in that country are about 7% of the population, possessing something like 80% of the land, while black people are in what they call Bantustans or in these little townships or on these little reservations, absolutely the majority still living in tin shacks, while white people live in high-rise luxury and on these estates and farms. And you got Julius Malema saying, no, we're going to take the land. We want the land. We want the land, which is the right. This is what these people fought for years and died. This is what Mandela should have come out of the prison in '94 and said, yeah, we want land. But he never did it. And that's why Mandela became their darling. They loved him. See?
We are going to occupy land. South Africa occupy.
What would you like, President?
And Trump asked the question to Ramaphosa, why is this man not being arrested? Julius Malema, why is he not being arrested? It will come up a bit later on about the chant, the anti-apartheid chant that Trump is asking Ramaphosa, why hasn't this man been arrested? In other words, why have you not killed him? Why have you not jailed him? Why has he not been silenced? Because how dare he, as a black South African, demand justice from white people? I'm telling you, family, we better wake up.
President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've just seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death, death, death.
What you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy.
Here's Ramaphosa now trying to throw Julius Malema under the bus, trying to explain to Massa that really, don't worry about him. He's just a small minority party. He's got no power. He's not in government. We're against him. He's never, ever going to be successful in South Africa because we got that whole parliamentary thing wrapped up. You know, we're a democracy. We're following your rules and your systems, and we can rig the election so that he will never, ever come to power. I mean, honestly, family, it's really quite pathetic when you understand what we witnessed the other day in this Oval Office.
We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
and
take
then when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
The
been
farmers are
utilized.
black. The farmers are not black.
We
I don't
now-
say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not.
Listen to the level of racism of Donald Trump, where he even believes that the majority of farmers in South Africa are white. No, beloved. The majority of farmers in South Africa are black. See, you got some white farmers, they run these massive industrial farms where they control most of the good land, but you got black farmers. But as far as Trump is concerned, only white people are legitimate farmers in South Africa. Just think about that level of racism where you can only see white people as being productive when it comes to agriculture and when it comes to feeding that nation. My goodness, my goodness.
Black, and the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off, they died violently, and
now this is Trump now going into the old trope about black people being maniacal and savage, and you know how we kill these white farmers and we chop off their heads. And I mean, what you got to understand about Caucasians is that they do have a paranoia, see, because they know the evil that they've done to us as a people, and they can't understand how we haven't responded in kind, how we haven't massacred them and slaughtered them in the same manner in which they've done to us when we outnumber them to such a huge proportion. See? And so there is this paranoia, there's this fear where they expect at any moment to be slaughtered in their beds. And this is what Trump is projecting when you hear him talking about horrible deaths of white people having their heads chopped off and whatever, because they know that's what they deserve. That's not what black people are doing. And the reality is that when it comes to violence in South Africa, which is a very violent place based on the level of depravity that has been instilled from the apartheid era, and the fact that so many of the millions of Africans in that region have been kept impoverished, you see, and without resources, without land. They've turned on one another. There's a lot of violence there. But the vast majority of people who are being slaughtered on a daily basis is black people. It's black on black. It's not black on white. There's been a few white people who have been killed. Yes, that's the reality of living in a violent society. But they're not being targeted. But this is what Trump wants the world to believe. He's got the world's media in that room, and listen to what's coming out of his mouth.
They died violently, and you know, I mean, we're here to talk about it.
Dear family, I hope we're following this. We're not going to be long, but we really just wanted to point out that with friends like these, who needs enemies, man? If these are the people that we really want to call our friend, let me just go to what HKA said somewhere up here. I saw. He says, HKA says, remember Ramaphosa went to bed with the enemy political party, the Democratic Alliance. Yeah, in another show, if you remember, I did point out that, you know, the ANC, this is the revolutionary group that we expected when they came into power was going to absolutely change the reality and condition of black people. But all they did was the white man got out of the seat, the ANC sat in the same seat, and then carried on in the same corrupt, dirty, stinking system that had kept black people in that terrible condition. And then worse than that, a few years ago, they actually joined forces with that racist white party, the Democratic Alliance, which is just, it's just unbelievable. dear family, that the ANC would do something like that. This is how deep the sellout goes, you see, of the aspirations of the South African people. Dear family, Trump was relentless in offering up false evidence of what he called a genocide against white farmers, then suddenly asking for the lights to be lowered before showing various videos depicting Julius Malema chanting, "Kill the Boer," and what he described as the burial grounds of thousands of dead white farmers, as well as holding up articles and images of more dead white people, placing Ramaphosa firmly on the back foot and looking and sounding like a man forced onto the defensive. This is what Trump was doing in that room on that day. And it was, to me, it was embarrassing for Ramaphosa, but it was also not that Trump was embarrassed, but I'm saying for any white person with any type of conscience, that was embarrassing, man. Because people surely knew, even when it was live, that this is just a nonsense. And this is just, it's just embarrassing to see this level of dishonesty being displayed by the so-called president of the United States of America, you know, palming off these so-called articles, which under any type of scrutiny, you would very quickly come to realize that this is just sheer and utter propaganda and lies. Dear family, white European Israelis are angry and cannot understand why Palestinians who have been murdered, displaced, and violently suppressed would in turn use violence to resist occupation and further land theft. See, understand this. These white Israelis, if you listen to some of the way they talk, they can't understand why, after all of this displacement, murder, suppression, why would Palestinians fight back? Why? We're white people. We're Jews. We're so good and holy and virtuous. Why would you fight us while we do this evil to you? See, this is how we got to really appreciate the shock that these people express, that these Palestinians would want to fight back. See, why? Why would they use violence to resist occupation and further land theft? While white descendants of the former Dutch and English settlers who murdered, displaced, and disenfranchised Black Africans under a brutal apartheid system have the brass-necked temerity to cry foul over a liberation chant against their oppressor and abusers. See, because this is what they're doing now. They're crying foul because Julius Malema has the audacity to say, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. This is from when they were struggling for their liberation against apartheid. And now we must throw aside this because, it hurts the sensibilities of white people, or it puts them in fear that maybe we might actually mean it, and we might turn around and actually kill the Boer and kill the white farmer. We may actually do it, you see? And it's their fear of what potentially could happen, because they know what they do.
Yes.
They see us through the lens of themselves. See? My goodness.
This South African song has been igniting quite the firestorm online. Once deemed a struggle chant, modern adaptations of it have
This is what Trump was showing in the White House.
Kindled cries of white genocide. So why is this song so controversial? Well, it's mostly to do with its lyrics.
Kill the Boer, the farmer.
That chant about killing the Boers, the descendants of Dutch settlers in South Africa.
But look at the Boer. Look at them. Covered in bullets, covered in guns, armed to the teeth. These are the people who went to South Africa and slaughtered the native people to steal their land. How do you think they came into 80% of the land? How do you think they control 80% of the economy of that nation? How? Because they were so nice people? Or was it that they went there and committed genocide and slaughter in order to take over somebody else's land? And the people today, 97% of the indigenous people are relegated to Bantustans and reservations and ghettos. And white people, as far as white people are concerned, yeah, this is our right. We should be here. And we feel threatened. We feel threatened because you got some black people in the stadium saying, kill the Boer. Okay? Kill the farmer. Those a chant coming from the days of the liberation struggle. These people, man, honestly.
Dubul Ibunu, which translates to shoot the Boer, was born in the throes of apartheid-era South Africa in the early 90s. Apartheid, which is the Afrikaans word for separateness, was pretty popular among white voters who sought to preserve their dominance over South Africa's black majority. The chant had roots across the political spectrum and was brought back into the public sphere by politician Peter Mokaba after the African National Congress Youth League was reconstituted in 1991 when it grew into a rallying call against apartheid. Dubul Ibunu is one of a number of struggle songs, that is,
a rallying call against apartheid. That's what the chant represents.
Apartheid. Dubul Ibunu is one of a number of struggle songs, that is, political anthems that were a key part of the fight to end white rule over non-whites in South Africa. As ANC lawmaker Gwede Mantashe put it in 2010,
we're not talking about whites, we're talking about the system of apartheid. The biggest problem I have is when journalists interpret Dubul Ibunu as kill the Boer, kill the farmer, which...
I really hated this statement from this brother, whoever he is. He's part of the ANC, but he's just an apologist. He's just apologizing to white people. We are not talking about whites. Yes, we are. We were talking about the system of apartheid. The biggest problem I have is when journalists interpret Dubul Ibunu as kill the Boer, kill the farmer, which is a vulgarized interpretation of the song. No, it meant exactly what it said. Kill the Boer, kill the farmer. Remember what we said a few weeks ago about black people loving to quote Malcolm X, by any means necessary. We don't mean it. We're liars. We say these things by any means necessary. The only one who does by any means necessary is the white man. The white man will win by any means necessary. Okay? Understand this. Even now, you see this situation in Ukraine, in Europe, if it comes to it, the white man in the West, he will press the nuclear button. That's the kind of demon that you're dealing with here. Okay? By any means necessary. Black people, we only talk that rubbish, but we will never go there. See, it's just not in our nature, it's not in our character to employ by any means necessary. We will chant, kill the Boer, kill the farmer, but that's not something that we carry into practice, into action. And you can tell that even by this ANC brother basically denying the meaning of it and what it actually stands for, because he's an apologist for white people. Oh, we don't really mean it, but it should be interpreted for what the words should actually mean, what they say. You see, we should actually want to kill anybody who is prepared to steal our land and to so disenfranchise us as a people that we don't stand a chance of ever leading any kind of normal existence in our own country. But no, instead we want to say, oh, we don't really mean it. See? So that's why I don't like it. Malcolm X said one time, I think it was in a questions and answers, somebody asked him about revolution. Malcolm said, don't talk to me about revolution. Because in a real revolution, you may have to kill members of your own family. See? Because that's what we don't understand. In a real revolution, the enemy within has to be dealt with. See, those who will betray the revolution, those who will go and collaborate with the enemy in order to undermine the revolution, you think that you can just leave them and, oh, it's a nice, oh, just we're gonna just leave them and let them betray what we're trying to accomplish. Do you understand how many rebellions of enslaved Africans were put down by the enemy, by the slave master, because we had some Uncle Tom stool pigeons, house Negroes who would go and inform that there was a rebellion being planned, that there was an uprising that was about to happen. This is how we've been kept in this condition all of these years because of traitors. So Malcolm said, don't talk to me about revolution until you're ready to do what's necessary to make a revolution. Revolution ain't no play day. See? And that's why the enemy, the other day, he was coming out and saying, oh, Ibrahim Traore's military have killed a whole lot of a particular tribe of Africans in Burkina Faso. Why was the enemy saying that? It wasn't true. He had killed so-called terrorists. But the enemy was saying, putting it out in the media that, oh, Traore had killed these members of this tribe. Why? Because he knows, the enemy knows that there are enough of us in the population of Burkina Faso, enough of us in the population of any of these African nations, enough of us in the diaspora who, once we get an idea that, oh, we've got a leader who's prepared to kill the traitors, that we will turn against that leader. Because, oh, that's not democratic, it's not nice. Oh, why are you killing our own people? But it's our own people, oftentimes, many of our own people, who will be our worst enemies. That's what Bob Marley was talking about. See? But we don't want to deal with that type of reality. We want to join hands with our enemy and sing Kumbaya. Telling you, man, we better wake up. We better wake up.
Is a vulgarized interpretation of the song.
Apartheid ended in 1994, but the tradition of singing anti-apartheid songs didn't exactly fizzle out. Driving the resurgence of Dubulibunu in the early 2010s were some familiar faces. Then President of South Africa and the African National Congress, Jacob Zuma, and Julius Malema, the leader of the far-left economic freedom fighters. Both leaders faced repercussions in court for those actions by right-wing and rights groups over hate speech. In 2022, though,
white people took them to court, took the former leader of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, and Malema to court, charging them with hate speech because of kill the Boer, kill the farmer, and they won the case. Okay, the case, the chant was deemed as free speech, but now Trump brings it up like, oh, this is some terrible thing that this brother is doing, and why is he not in prison? Why are you not killing him? Dear family, even though Donald Trump is not the seasoned, polished, and professional liar of the politician class, nonetheless, as a white man, he is a natural-born liar, and his instinct for lying was on full display in the Oval Office when he sprung the trap on Cyril Ramaphosa, and in front of the whole world, he brazenly attempted to hoodwink and deceive everyone into believing that white farmers in South Africa are innocent victims of a black governmental genocide. That's what Trump attempted to do in that White House. Now let's deal with the actual facts.
Well, it's time now for our daily fact-checking show, Truth or Fake. Vedika Behel joins me in the studio. Hi, Vedika. So we're staying with this story. As we've been mentioning, Donald Trump ambushed Ramaphosa with a clip and news articles that allegedly proved that there is a white genocide against South African farmers. But some of the elements that he showed are, in fact, misleading. Tell us more.
That's right, Yinka. I think we've all seen the video by now of President Trump insisting to President Ramaphosa that there is a genocide taking place against white Afrikaner farmers in South Africa, despite Ramaphosa's effort to fact-check. Trump demanded to dim the lights and roll the clip. He even brandished a stack of printed news articles that he said documents that persecution. But despite all of that alleged proof, Trump has misrepresented the fact in. I want to start with these articles in particular. At one point, the US president flipped through his paperwork. He says death, death, death on each page. He says that these were all published in the last few days, and that one headline and that all the headlines show white farmers being buried. Now, at one point in particular, he held up a headline to the camera here. We can see the headline clearly. It says, "Let's talk about Africa, which is where tribalism takes you," published by a blog called The American Thinker. There's also a thumbnail here of bodies being buried as well. Now, this article that he's holding is still online. It's pretty easily findable. And unlike what he said about this all being in the last few days, this blog post is not. It's dated February 13th earlier this year. As for the image that he said there shows white farmers being buried, this is not even in South Africa. This is actually an image of aid workers burying bodies in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, how do we know that? Well, it's pretty
Trump, the damnable liar. Go ahead.
clear, linked here at the bottom in the blog post itself. It says image, YouTube screen grab. Pretty easy to click on the link and it takes us straight there to a report published by Indian media WION using Reuters footage showing women being buried following a mass jailbreak in Goma. So not South Africa, Yinka, but the DRC. And it is a story that is months old as well, unlike what Trump claimed in his meeting.
And Vedika, Trump also was very keen to show that alleged video proof to President Ramaphosa as well. Talk us through how accurate that video was.
Yes, that's right. Trump was pretty keen to roll his compilation clip. Well, it started out with archive footage of Julius Malema, who is a South African black nationalist politician. That's possibly why President Ramaphosa stifled a slight smile when he heard that voice ring out, because it is a voice that he recognizes. Now, Malema previously led the ruling ANC.
Yeah, Julius Malema haunts Ramaphosa in the South African parliament, and they're desperate to stop the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, from ever coming to power, because that's the out of all of the political entities within that nation, that's the only one that actually is articulating any type of real independence or sovereignty or freedom for black people in South Africa. Hence why the ANC have now joined forces with this so-called Democratic Alliance, the former apartheid regime political system, in order to keep Ramaphosa. And you got the Ramaphosa, you know, reassuring Donald Trump that, oh, he's just a minority, he'll never come to power, we'll keep him out. I mean, it's so pathetic.
ANC Party's youth wing, but he was expelled around 2020. He has never held an official government position, despite Trump's misconception there. He now leads a minority party in South Africa called the Economic Freedom Fighters. And President Ramaphosa did reiterate this to Trump, that he is very much a minority with no executive role. And this has nothing to do with his government's official policy. Now, later in that compilation clip, there's also a video, an archive video of the former president, Jacob Zuma, singing a controversial apartheid-era song that includes the lyric, "Shoot the Boer," the Boers of which, the descendants of which are the white Afrikaners in South Africa. Now, this is a controversial song. The ANC did promise to stop singing the song after that. Now, Trump said in this meeting that those singing were officials in office, but this is simply not true. This video is well over 10 years old with no officials in office shown. Again, Ramaphosa did tell Trump directly in the meeting that these videos, these speeches, these rallies in his compilation have little to nothing to do with the way he runs his government. Now, I want to turn to the final video in Trump's compilation there. It shows white crosses lining a rural highway. Let me bring that up so you can see that better. But this is the video that the president played for President Ramaphosa. Trump said that this shows burial.
I mean, just look at that. I mean, it's so pathetic. Trump is so pathetic. Here you've got crosses lining a road. Who would bury anybody lining a road? Why would you bury people lining a road? And just white crosses with no names on, no proper. You think white people would bury their loved ones like that? You just sick. It's just so stupid, you see. But what the people don't understand is that was some type of memorial to thousands of black people that had actually been slaughtered, a lot of black people that had been killed, and it was representative. It was supposed to be a memorial type protest thing that had been put along that road, but it didn't represent graves or places where people had actually been buried, which is, again, Trump. And Trump must know this, unless he's a real imbecile. But he's just lying. And then, you know, death with these pieces of paper, you know, that showing burial taking place in the Democratic Republic of Congo and claiming that this is white farmers in South Africa. You're dealing with Satan here. Understand this. And with friends like these, if this is who Ramaphosa wants to be a friend of, we're really, really, really a sick joke.
Sites of over 1,000 white farmers, with each cross representing a different farmer that was killed. But these are not graves at all. According to local news, this was in fact from a protest in 2020, so 5 years ago now, in memorial for a white farming couple that was killed in their home, according to the police report. According
to her, this is a memorial for two people, two white people. But this is how valuable they see these two white people, that they're going to put hundreds or thousands of crosses all down a road to represent two white people. But Trump is now trying to palm this off on the world as thousands of white farmers suffering a genocide at the hands of black people. Sick devils, sick devils.
The Google Street View, dated from 2023, we can see that these have been removed and that they no longer exist. Now, Elon Musk did post this video twice on his platform X in the last 6 months. We can see him sharing that video as well.
So Elon Musk posting that because he's a apartheid era South African, you see, posting it up in the last 6 months to try to keep that big lie going that white people are suffering a genocide in South Africa, and they've all been buried along a road. Really sick people.
Now, overall, Trump's compilation does mislead that there is a wave of anti-white hate and white genocide taking place in South Africa. And while the country does have a very high murder rate, it's around an average of 72 people a day in a country that has a population of 60 million people. Most of these victims are black. And I just want to end with these figures from the South African Police Service from 2024. They recorded over 26,000 murders in 2024. 44 of these were within the farming community, and out of that, only 8 of those were farmers, Yinka. So I think that's a good point for us to end that.
Yeah. So 26,232 murders. 26,000. 44 of them connected with the farming community in some way or another. And I can assure you that the vast majority of those 44 were black people murdered in farms, in criminality on farms. 8 were farmers. And it doesn't even out of that 8, it doesn't distinguish between whether they were white farmers or black farmers. If it was white farmers, it would have said 8 white farmers. Understand this. And that memorial was for 2 white people who had been killed. Oh, brothers and sisters, I hope we understand what we're dealing with here as we come to a close. You know, I found it pitiful looking at this president of an African nation, looking and sounding like an abused woman, gently trying to appease a violent, psychopathic husband who she knew is more than capable of murdering her if she doesn't remain subservient and compliant to all his demands. Demands that mean more harm and deprivation will be inflicted on both her and her children, the children being the Black South African majority. But she has been reduced to begging him for beneficence and mercy. That was Ramaphosa's face in the Oval Office. I just felt sorry for the man, see, because he really thinks that he's going to get beneficence, mercy, help, friendship, love from these white people that he has embraced, that he's got them all up in his government. And, you know, they came to the White House with him to bolster him and to cause Trump to be more sympathetic towards him. I mean, it's really pathetic. The sooner these leaders get out of the way or adopt the Ibrahim Traore mentality, the better, because nothing else ain't gonna work, family. It's separation or death. That's the reality. That's the reality. That's what we face right now. And it ain't about to change with us going to the Caucasian with no begging bowl. Donald Trump and the fake white world supremacy cult that has dominated the planet for the past 6,000 years is acutely aware that their time to rule over the darker peoples of the earth is just about up, and they are terrified of this unstoppable reality, and they are desperately trying everything in their arsenal of tricks, lies, the making of war, and the spilling of blood to try to maintain a place of privilege on top of the new world that's coming in. There's a new world, family, that's coming in, and white people are desperate to try to get, to stay, to maintain themselves at the top of the new reality that's about to unfold.
Zimbabwe, Mugabe, he fought and won, but didn't take the land back from the Caucasians. And some of those who fought with him came to him and said, look, brother, we joined you in war. We fought, we won. But the land is still in the hands of those who came and stole it from us. You have to give the land back to us. Before he started giving the land back, he was the darling of white people. You are always their best friend as long as you're not a friend of your people. As long as you let them do what they want to do with us, you are all right, nigga.
Come on, teach, brother. Teach. Make it plain. That's right.
But when Robert Mugabe said, we got to take the land back from the white farmers who had, thousands and thousands of acres of land, and black people had none. Then all of a sudden, America and England turned down on Mugabe. Thabo Mbeki in South Africa now is reasoning with taking land and giving it back. I was in South Africa. When I got off the plane, there was a man in chains. He didn't say a word. He just was in chains. When I got to the hotel, there he was, wrapped in chains. What was he telling me? I don't care what they say, Farrakhan. We're still in chains. I met with President Mandela, a beautiful man. And then I had dinner with Winnie Mandela. And Winnie Mandela said to me, My former husband has promised the people houses. He's promised them electricity because white folk promised him. And then they didn't fulfill their promise, so he couldn't live up to his promise to the masses of South Africa. And right now you can go to South Africa. The gold is still in the hands of the whites. The diamonds are still in the hands of the whites. Everything of value is still in the hands of the whites. The power of military might is in the hands of the whites. The white world has to pay.
That's right.
That's it, family. There is a terrible, terrible price to pay, and they know this. They know this. You see, we ain't talking about reparations, a check, some money. No. There is a price that they're going to have to pay for all of the evil that they have done and continue to do, and they know this, and that's part of their panic and their fear and their paranoia, which is why, you know, they start shouting and screaming about genocide when there's no genocide taking place, because they're expecting to be slaughtered, because they know the level of slaughter that they have put on the populations of the earth. And so, dear family, I'm saying, be a friend to yourself. Be a friend to your family. Be a friend to your brothers and sisters. Be a friend to God. Choose God, brothers and sisters. Forget about this friendship with the white man, with white people. Stop it. It's never going to work. Doesn't work. Okay? Because that's a huge, huge mistake. With friends like those, I'm telling you, you don't need no enemies, because they will always be an enemy to the black man and the black woman's rise, to the black family's rise, to the black nation's rise. They can't help themselves. They were never put here to be collaborators with us. They were put here to put us down in order that they could rule. Now the time has come for us to take back our rule and our rightful place. It's time for them to RIP, rest in peace. That's the reality. Somebody in the chat said 2 captains can't occupy the same space at the same time. That's exactly right. Okay, that's the law of physics. 2 things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. And for the white man to rule, the black man had to sleep. Now the black man is awakened. It's time for the white man to go to sleep. And so that's where we are, family. I really want to thank you for being with us again for another episode, and for, you know, spending the time with us. And I pray that something that we said, something that we shared, has really sparked your imagination, your ability to image a nation. And we pray that you will see it in your mind's eye and make a determination to bring it into reality, because that's what we're all about in this space. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much, Brother Leo Muhammad.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you,
Yes,
Sister
thank
Claudia,
you.
for your
Praise be
help.
to Allah. So, family, thank you for tuning in once again. Don't forget, subscribe to the Final Call newspaper. If you want to read the truth, subscribe to the Final Call newspaper, and there's articles about separation or integration by the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan. There's also about those storms, because the minister keeps warning us, watch the weather. And you can read these articles. Apparently there were, where does it say? There were between May the 15th to the 18th, there were 100 tornadoes.
Wow.
from Colorado to New Jersey, 100.
Wow.
In those few days.
And they're not really reporting.
No, they're not
see?
saying a word. So that's why it's very important to subscribe to the Final Call newspaper, where you will read the truth and the reality of what is going on in this world. If you rely on these television stations, the radios, you're not going to hear it.
Yes.
So very important. Subscribe to the Final Call newspaper. Don't forget, tune in to the Final Call radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Feed yourself with the knowledge and wisdom from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Absolutely a lifesaver, especially this time that we're living in. Mental health is when you've detached yourself from God, where you can't find that outlet to tune into someone to listen to. Prayer is so important, but it's praying to the right God. So tune into the Final Call radio, and don't forget to tune in to NOI.org every Sunday. You can hear fantastic lectures from the student ministers in the Nation of Islam. And please don't forget, if you can, tune in next week Thursday, to the Image and Nation show. Thank you all so much for your comments. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you. We got to just show gratitude. Have to always, today's day, have to give gratitude. So
yes, praise be to Allah.
Yes.
Thank you, Sister Claudia. And the time now is just 17 minutes after 8 GMT in the UK. And I'll be on tonight, or in the early hours of this morning, probably around 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll be on the People's Podcast with Brother Joshua Muhammad tonight. I don't know.
8 p.m.
8 p.m. probably
Is it New York?
Central or New York time.
Yes.
People's Podcast. This evening, Brother Leo Muhammad should be guesting on the People's Podcast.
Look forward to
with
that.
Brother Joshua
Yes.
Muhammad. And look forward to seeing you all again, inshallah, same time, same place. Next week, if Almighty God Allah spares our life.
That's right.
Inshallah.
That's right.
Take care, family.
Take care.
Love you all.
Absolutely.
Assalamu alaikum.